Good morning. I'm Utpala, and today we're doing class 5, The Nature of Omniscience, in the Foundation Course 4, Proof of Future Lives. But before we get started, as is my wont to do, uh, oh, good, we have a Ukrainian translator in the house. Yay! Um, Let us take a moment to, to bring to mind in a firm way what calls us to be here taking this course and to be here today. You know, our Buddha paradise, if it is what you desire to do, to become an enlightened being, um, there isn't a Buddha paradise waiting somewhere up there in the heavens, waiting for us to move in. We have to plant the seeds to experience living as an enlightened being in a paradise surrounded by high level bodhisattvas and speaking Dharma, speaking truth. So these courses, these classes, and this one, when as we're talking about omniscience, allows us to plant the seeds to have the experience of omniscient state of mind. And being here surrounded by other people around this planet who are interested in this topic, being with them is planting the seeds to be in our paradise surrounded by high level bodhisattvas. So may every moment of this class plant seeds, plant very powerful seeds that will ripen into an experience of an omniscient state of mind. I have to bring back the chat just in case I peek out of the corner of my eye and see some important message. Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam Lam Jangchu pardu dakni kyapsu chi. Daki jishe gipe sanam ki. Jola penshir sangye juparsho. Sangye charan soki chuknam lam. Jangchu pardu dakni kyapsu chi. Daki jishe gipe sanam ki. Jola penshir sangye juparsho. Sangye charan soki chuknam la. Changchu pardu dakni kyapsu chi. Daki chishe kipe sunam ki. Jola penshir sangye juparsho. Sashi Puki Chukshin Metok Tram Rirabling Shin Yinde Gampati Sangye Shindu Mikte Uarki Jokun Namdak Shingla Juparsho Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. So thank you for coming to class. This is my favorite thing to do, and I am so very grateful that you give me this opportunity um, to to spend so much time with these courses. Again, it's to me it's a real privilege. So thank you so much. Last time I I had too much to say, and I didn't finish all of the content of class 4. You couldn't answer one of the homework questions for class 4. So we're going to start with that. And um, it was sort of a different idea. So there's not a real thread we have to pick up. The question is regarding why it is. If you remember back last week, or maybe it was maybe it was the first class. We quoted from Master Dharmakirti's book. No, yes, and he's quoting Dignaga, and he's quoting the opening lines of Dignaga's compendium on accurate perception, right? Remember the story of Dignaga being in the cave and starting to write his book on the walls of the cave, and some scoundrel coming in and erasing his words. Well, in his first lines of the book, he talks about 5 different qualities of an enlightened being. He's bowing down to a Buddha, an enlightened being. And one of the qualities he mentions is, let me share the Tibetan. If you recall, was Semar Kirpa. Semar Kirpa. Sorry, my mouth is dry, so that wasn't pronounced very well. Semar Kirpa. And And sema, sema means accurate perception, right? The raw suffix is a particle that means as, as. And kirpa means became or turned into. You could say turned into, and the raw could be into. He turned into an accurate perception. So there's he's making a dignaga by saying that he turned into accurate perception. And we know that means one who has only accurate perceptions, right? He didn't become a state of mind. um, Geshe Wangchuk in his commentary is saying Dignaga used the word kirpa, turned into, for two different reasons. One, in a negative sense, to say that there's something that didn't happen. And the other is in a positive sense, to say that something did happen. So the young Chuki Kupa, that means a positive purpose. Kupa is purpose. Young Chuki Kupa. And then Nam Chuki Kupa. Sorry, I'm doing too long on that ch. It should be young Chuki Kupa. Young Chuki Kupa. So negatively, what's he trying to say that didn't happen? So what didn't happen, if someone turns into something, that means there was a time when they weren't that. They hadn't yet become that. So the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, was not enlightened from the moment of his birth, right? And there's all these books in the Kangyur, in the words of the Buddha, that section of the Buddhist canon, that are stories that the Buddha told about his previous lives and the things that he went through, both the negative actions he did and the things he did to purify the seeds that he created from those negative actions. In other words, he told stories of himself practicing this path to enlightenment, right? So the negative purpose is that the Buddha was not perfect from the beginning. At one point, he was like me, and you guys are too suspicious. I was going to say like us, but you're very suspicious. Now, the positive purpose, he did something to get that way. He followed a method. He turned into a being with an omniscient state of mind. He became totally correct. So, see, that wasn't so bad, right? That only took a couple minutes. Well, for me, a couple minutes is 13 minutes, but who's counting? Okay, now we're going to go on to class 5. And this is it's actually a good way to start class 5 by talking about these two different purposes that Master Dignaga had uh, in his beginning lines. I will get a Tibetan for today's class. Here we go. And the chat. So actually, I should take the time to ask if you have any questions about our last class. Yeah, live translators, this is the time for us to drink water because no one's talking. Okay, no questions. So we will jump in. So Tamche Kempa, that's the word for an omniscient state of mind, omniscience. Tamche is everything. And Kempa, normally when we use Kempa, it means a knowledge. But it can also mean a seeing. So it's seeing everything. And it's everything of every existing thing, of the past, of the present, of the future, every existing thing, including the emptiness, the lack of self-existence of every existing thing. So today we're going to go over a few sort of, what would you call them? Challenges that people who were not Buddhist back in so this is back in the ancient days, and they were, debating with Buddhists about what does it mean? Like, what is omniscience? And one of the questions is omniscience changing or unchanging? Is it static, not moving? Because it sees everything of all three times in every instant, freshly in every instant. So it's the same, right? An enlightened being is seeing the same thing. So doesn't that mean omniscience is unchanging? Or is omniscience changing? So remember earlier in this course, I can't remember which week now, we talked about dividing changing things into physical, mental, and things which are neither physical nor mental, like concepts, ideas, like Utpala. So now we're going to back up and we take the universe. You can divide things into things that don't exist and things that do exist. Don't exist is very small because they don't exist. But an example would be like horns of a rabbit. Rabbits don't have horns. They don't exist. So then we've got existing things. So we can take all existing things And we can divide them into two: changing and unchanging. The Tibetan is Takpa and Mitakpa. Now, this is a little bit confusing for those who are studying the Tibetan language, because this one starts with a negative particle, right? And it's exactly the same otherwise. Takpa, Mitakpa. So you would think this one would be unchanging, because un in English is a negative particle, unchanging. But in fact, it's not that way. Takpa means unchanging. Mitakpa means not changing, not unchanging. In other words, changing. So that can be a little confusing. So I'll try not to use those words too much, because it is confusing at the beginning. Sometimes you will hear, or you will read books where people use the words permanent and impermanent to reflect the ideas that we're going to talk about, of changing and unchanging. That permanent means unchanging, and impermanent means fluctuating or changing. But it doesn't really capture what the teachings are talking about. Sometimes it does. Like there's a meditation called Shiva Mitakpa. Shiva Mitakpa. So we have Mitakpa, so we know that means changing. And Shiva. Chiwa means death. So this is a death meditation. We find it in the Long Rim teachings, where we meditate on our own impermanence. And impermanence is a good word for that concept, that if we don't practice these teachings, and we don't enter the diamond way, and we don't become enlightened in this lifetime, then we will die. We will come to an end of this particular combination of name and personality and body and interests and all that sort of thing. That will come to an end. Shiva. So we talk about a changing thing, like this thing is a changing thing, right? It was produced, even conventionally, we say it was produced by causes. We say that there was a factory where various people got together, and they brought together these materials, and they made machines that created this thing, this pen. So the conventional level says that it's a changing thing, right? It had a cause, and it gets older. Like as we use it, we scratch it up. As we use it, the level of ink draws down. Sometimes the little clicker breaks or whatever. Things happen where this thing goes through a process of destruction. And we all know that eventually it will no longer be a pen, right? It's going to either break or run out of ink, or we lose it. That's probably the most typical way. But while this thing is in existence, it has a lack of being a pen from its own side, right? From the consequence branch, the highest school of the middle way, from that perspective, we've created a label and thrown this label onto our perceptions of something that is, looks the way this thing does and can be used the way we use this thing. So it's not a pen from its side. This thing doesn't scream pen to us. To someone who, a child. A child doesn't know that this is a pen yet, unless mom or dad has introduced the child to a pen. A cat doesn't see this as a pen. An ant certainly doesn't see it as a pen. An ant will crawl over it or something. See it as an obstacle course. So there's no pen coming from this thing. So emptiness is the absence of a thing being what we perceive it to be from its own side. So that emptiness, that lack, that exists 100% from the moment we have this perception of the pen until the moment it breaks. It's 100% empty the entire time. It doesn't grow. It doesn't, as the pen is being put together in the factory, or as the label is traveling, the mental image is traveling from a ripening seed into our perception. The emptiness, the absence of self-existence isn't also growing. It's just there or not there when this thing no longer exists. So to use the word, so that means it's unchanging, right? Emptiness does not change during the lifetime of this pen. The emptiness of it does not change. This thing, though, is changing, right? But to call the emptiness, the absence of self-existence of this pen, something that's permanent, that's confusing, right? Because permanent has this idea of lasting forever. Like the mind. The mind is something that has no beginning and will have no end. So the mind is permanent. It can never be destroyed, but it's changing moment by moment. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So that's just sort of a way to describe why Geshe Michael translates Takpa and Mitakpa as unchanging and changing instead of permanent and impermanent. Um, so omniscience is a state of mind, right? A kind of mental state. And it's obviously tied to tsema, to accurate perception. Can you see this? Is it too small? Tsema or pramana. Because omniscience is accurate perception of everything. The reason this is coming up here is because there was a school in ancient India called the Charvaka. And their idea of an omniscient being, a being who has omniscience, and they agreed with what omniscience means, to see all things of all time. But the Charvakas said that if someone is omniscient, they are also a creator of the world, the creator of the world. That only the creator of the world can be omniscient. So omniscience and creation of the world come together. And they said that this person who can see all things and who created the world, was unchanging, is unchanging. From this being, all things flow, and this being is unchanging. This being has always been the creator being. And he's always been omniscient. Now, there are some, from a Buddhist perspective, there are some problems with this idea. Where do we put mind? Which is, mind is simply, it's like our window to the world, in that it is that which experiences everything we experience. The mind, the definition of the mind is clear and aware. Sel Shing Rikpa, clear and aware. And the mind is not a something that doesn't change. In each instant, it is changing. There's not, it's so difficult to talk about the mind because it's not a physical thing. You know, if we think about it as a physical thing for a moment, it's not like a big, I don't have a big brick on my desk. Um, but it's not like a big brick. It's not like it just is solid and unmoving, unchanging. Uh, it's um, constantly being aware of different objects, having experiences of different objects. So we have that aspect of changing. And then we also have the aspect of a mind stream, right? It's not a big block that never changes. It's moments of mind, successive moments of mind. And we are going to talk about this later on in this course because it's related to one of the proofs for future lives. This idea of a mind stream, that each moment of mind depends on its immediate cause is the previous moment of time, and so on in a stream. So mind is changing all the time, changing instant by instant. And the mind, as it takes an object, and that's actually the word for mind, yul chen. Yul is an object, and yul chen means to have an object holder. The mind, when it encounters something, it holds the perception. It holds this object as a perception, as an experience of this object, because the mind is just clear and aware. In a way, it's like a mirror in that it's, but we don't want to go too far down that road right at the moment. But one of the qualities of the mind is that when it takes an object, when it holds an object, it takes on what they call, or what is called, nampa. Nampa. It means aspect. There are 5 qualities of mind, and we're not going to get into those. We just want to talk about nampa. So when if you can imagine lying on your back in a meadow, and it's early morning, so you're looking up at the sky. The sun is not in your eyes, so it's pleasant. And you're looking up at the sky, and the sky is blue. There's not a cloud in the sky. All you see is blue, kind of like the background of Wan Vu's Zoom picture. All you see is blue. Your mind, in its experience of the object blue sky, takes on the aspect blue. When you turn your head and you look at what would you look at if you're in a meadow? So you look at the green grass, then the aspect blue goes away from your mind, right? And then the aspect green. Your mind takes on the aspect green as it holds an object that is green. It doesn't, when you turn your head, it doesn't, the blue doesn't leave a shadow of blueness. It's not like your mind gets stained blue. It's just while it is holding this object, it has the aspect blue. When it turns to another object, then it drops that aspect blue and takes on a new aspect of the object that it's now looking at. Okay. So why are we talking about this? When the mind takes on an object, encounters an object that is changing, it has the aspect changing. Because the mind is in a way like a mirror. That object that the mind encounters or experiences is reflected in the mind. So when the mind is experiencing a changing thing, the mind is changing. Of course, we know the mind is changing for other reasons as well. So Dharmakirti says, omniscience is a changing state of mind. It's a state of mind that is changing because it experiences all existing things, and all existing things includes both changing things and unchanging things. So because it's experiencing changing things, that state of mind is changing. Now, what about, the non-Buddhists say, what about when the mind is focusing on something that is unchanging? Right? According to you then, Master Dharmakirti, that would mean that at that time that the mind experiences something unchanging, it must also be unchanging. And Master Dharmakirti says, not necessarily. The opposite is not necessarily true. He talks about the mind being rengawa, which means that the mind is kind of like it engages with the object and releases the object, engages with another object, releases that object, and then engages with this object again. says the mind is like a fly. A fly doesn't sit still for very long, but it does like to sit. It finds a place to sit, stays there for a few seconds, and then jumps over to somewhere else and sits for a few seconds. So Master Dharmakirti says our mind is like that. Our mind is engaging and disengaging from objects. So even when, Master Dharmakirti says, the mind is experiencing an unchanging thing, sometimes it's engaged and sometimes it's not. So if we think about an unchanging thing, which would be the absence of me having two heads, right? I have one head. You can look at me, easily see one head, not two heads. So there's an absence of a second head. That absence is an unchanging thing. That lack. It didn't come to be a little bit that I didn't have a second head. It's not like I had a second head and I lost it, or that I'm going to have a second head in the future. It just hasn't grown yet. There's no second head, 100%. But our mind doesn't stay on that object. It engages with the absence, and then later on, oh right, Utpala is lacking a second head. It engages with that object again. So that's what Master Dharmakirti is saying. So those are his two arguments for why omniscience is a changing thing. The first was because omniscience experiences all existing objects, and all existing objects include changing things. And when the object that the mind is engaged with is changing, so is the mind. That's argument number one. Argument number two is that it's not unchanging because it engages and disengages and re-engages with objects all the time. It's touching an object and drawing away, and then touching the object again. It's engaging and disengaging. Now, this is not Master Dharmakirti's proposal. Well, let's just continue on. I don't want to be too much of it. Blah blah. Okay, so those are the two arguments that Master Dharmakirti gives. Hopefully that's clear. Okay. Now, about this idea of omniscience, must belong to a creator of the world. It just fits. I don't know if that just fits for you. It's very close to the border. Here we go. Jikten Sawapo Rinpoche. Jikten Sawapo Rinpoche. Jikten. This is the Tibetan word for the world. Could be the world in general, but it can also mean our, our suffering world. It doesn't mean samsara, but it's close, right? It's our suffering world, and we look at the words that it's made up of. Jik means destructible, that which can be destroyed, and ten means a basis. So the world, soapo means maker, creator. So Jikden Soapo means a creator of the world. Now, I want to warn you, those of you, and I hope some of you are doing the Tibetan in the homeworks and quizzes. I went back the second time through the courses and I did all Tibetan. And that was fun. The answer key gives a different phrase than this one for question 3 in Tibetan. It gives the phrase Tamche Chepa Wangchuk, which Geshe Michael didn't mention when he taught this course. But Tamche means everything. Chepa means to do. And Wangchuk is a word for God or creator or Ishvara, a Hindu God that is the creator of the world. So this is another phrase that it doesn't mean exactly the same thing. Well, it does mean the same thing as this. Jikten Soapo, that's creator of the world. Tamche Chepa Wangchuk is creator of everything. God that creates everything. The thing that's different that Geshe Michael talked about in class is this Rinpoche. Rinpoche. You may remember rim from the word lam rim, steps on the path. Lam is path, rim is steps or stages. So the creator being, when we think about those people who say there's a creator being, they say, like, for example, in the Judeo-Christian traditions, they say that God made the world in 7 days. God created the world in stages. There was the work he did on day 1, the work he did on day 2, etc. If God is creating everything, then God is still creating, right? I'm sure that Judeo-Christian people have the idea that, God is creating the blue sky and the trees and the birds and the all the beauty in the world, as well as the suffering we encounter. Some people say they're tests to test our faith. But but God continues to create. It doesn't happen in an instant. Now, if there were God who was omnipotent, I mean, not omnipotent, yes, it is omnipotent, who is all powerful, who can do anything, right? Then uh, this is a question I had as a young child being brought up in this tradition. Uh, why didn't he just make it and be done with it? Why does it have to take time? If this is an all-powerful being, why not just snap your fingers and be done with it? Now, I'm not sure what sort of, I mean, different religions do have effects on the culture, on different cultures, right? So we each, I think, just from looking at the different languages being talked about or used here in our Zoom call, we come from very different cultures from each other. And so we each have different experiences of the effect of religious ideas on our culture. Like in my culture, um, it is almost as if God is a given. Like there's no question. You don't question God. There's a creator. That's it. Simple. There's a creator God. And you see this idea reflected in in all over the place in different ways, like in intellectual ideas, in books, in movies, in TV shows, in advertisement, in you see it everywhere. And so I imagine that to some extent, the culture that you're in has been affected by some religious ideas, or maybe even the idea that there is no, that religion is folly for people. It is a silly idea, and that there is no God. There's no, that everything happens by randomly, by chance. There's no one who created all of this. So we have different cultures or in different parts of the world, and we are brought up. We aren't born with these ideas. We are brought up by these cultures, and we're influenced by these ideas. We're taught there is a God, or we're taught that there's this kind of God, or we're taught that there's 100 different kinds of gods, or we're taught that there's one God and only one God, everyone else is wrong, or we're taught that there's no God and everything is random. Very rarely, only very precious few people or cultures on this planet are affected by the idea that we are the creators of our world, that our actions, that our thoughts, that our speech is what creates the world. So we talk about, the reason this class talks about these ideas is that most of the planet is under the influence, very strongly under the influence of some idea of a God or randomness. So that's why we talk about that's why we want to discount those ideas, because we need to look at our own culture and see what it is that we were taught, and see how our thinking is influenced by our culture, so that we can work with that in our practice. Rinpoche. So creating the world in stages. I mean, even science says, excuse me, that there was a big bang, and then different chemicals and stuff was flying around, and explosion in the universe, and eventually things came together and made solid things, and other things exploded and made suns, and there's gravity. Anyway, it's saying it takes a long time, that the creation of the universe happened in stages, and it's actually still happening. We are expanding, they say. So even though that the Charvakas were saying that their God is omnipotent, well, why didn't he just do it all at once? He's all powerful. The fact that regardless of which story we accept, right, whether it's random or whether it's uh, through some divine action, the creation of the world, according to our own perception, uh, has happened over a period of time. And that's the proof why an unchanging being didn't create the world. Because things happen in stages, in steps. You create the causes, you nurture, you cultivate, and then the thing grows. And that's the way things work. Anything else is, remember we had this word, nula nuche, offensive to our own perceptions, right? One of the tests for whether the Buddha was speaking literally or figuratively, I think, was that it matches our perceptions. We can see that that's the way things work. Okay. Now, this is challenging to teach because these are in a very real sense, these are just ideas, right? These are not proofs. These are not convincing things that I'm saying. I'm sharing what other people have taught. And you don't have to believe it. But not believing it now doesn't mean that you that this is not planting a seed for understanding it in the future. So that's my personal hope is that this class is planting seeds for understanding. That one day, you know, you'll come out of retreat and you'll say, she was right. That's the way it is. Now we have to understand this in order to enter the diamond way. So if there's things here that you find challenging to accept, whether it's today or any of the days of this course, hold it lightly. If you, don't hold on to it tightly. That, oh, this is wrong. I don't believe it, so it's bad. I'm throwing it out. Just put it on the shelf, but put it on the shelf in front of you. Think about it occasionally. Contemplate. Ask yourself questions. What is it that I don't understand? And, don't frustrate yourself to where you want to throw out everything. But, pick it up occasionally and look at it again and say, okay, now let me see if I've planted some good seeds to understand this. So that's my suggestion. So the next thing we're going to talk about with an omniscient being is that they say, where is that? There it is. You hear this a lot, Langja and Dorja. Well, you don't hear those Tibetan words, Langja and Dorja, but you hear that the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha said what to take up, what we should do, and what to give up, what we should abandon. So Langja means those things we should do, and Dorja means those things we should abandon. Now, why is because, before we met these teachings, I used to think that to be happy, I had to get a job, which means I had to study something important in college, and get a job and then do well at my job so that I could make money, so I could buy the things I wanted to buy, and then I would be happy. Actually, the truth is I wasn't happy. I was suicidal because I did all those things and they didn't work. And I thought I was crazy. I thought that's what everyone else is doing. That's what's supposed to happen. if you do well in school, uh, if you get a good job, if you do well at your job, you get promoted, you make lots of money, uh, you can buy whatever you want, you have a beautiful boyfriend, you know, you have the best friends. I had all those things and I was miserable. Without these teachings, that seems like a reasonable way to think about the world. Thinking that things outside of us are going to bring us happiness is insane. Really. It does not work. Does not work. Those kinds of ideas that things outside of us are going to bring us some benefit are things we need to give up. You know, attachment to money, fame, attention of other people, uh, lasting love. These are all things we should give up. And the things we should take on are the things like serving others, thinking of others' happiness first, uh, helping to heal the sick, helping to feed the hungry, helping to protect those who are in danger of being harmed. So, what to take up and what to give up. And they say, you know, from a intellectual point of view, that the Buddha said what to take up and what to give up because he sees everything perfectly, correctly. He, with this omniscience, he's seeing all things of the past, present, and future. And he knows with certainty what actions produce what results. He knows that he can see, or she can see, that helping others be happy brings people result of being happy. Grasping after things and hoarding them, not sharing them, results in a future without things, you know, without having what you need. There, you'll see in your reading for today, there's a little poem by Dharmakirti, and he talks about omniscience. And he says, you know, yeah, omniscience means you see every single thing. You see the flapping of a butterfly's wings from millions of years ago, or you see the dew in a blade of grass thousands of years from now, and you see the love in a child's in an infant's eyes as they look at their mother. Um, basically, so what? You can see all those things. So what? How can that help. That's not the point. Seeing every existing thing is not the point. The point is that an enlightened being knows perfectly what we should give up and what we should take up, what we should do and what we should stop doing. And he says, oh, this is kind of a tongue twister, so I have to go slow. Sir Shok Jagu Tempar Gishe. And that means if you think that the point of omniscience is that you can see everything of all three times, then you might as well take a vulture as your teacher. In other words, it's for the birds. That's a phrase in English, and apparently also in ancient Tibetan. It's not seeing every single thing is not the important thing. Yes, it's it's a it's a way for Buddha to to be to have only accurate perception. But why? Why did the Buddha become enlightened? A Buddha becomes enlightened because they want to serve all living beings. A Buddha becomes enlightened in order to teach people what to do to get from the state that they're in into a state of enlightenment. What to give up and what to take up. Never forget that motivation. Min Triet has a question about whether or not time exists for an enlightened being, because they see everything of the past, present, and future in each moment. Time is a concept, right? Time is a mental construct. And we know this because we have days when time seems to go quickly, and then other days when time seems to slow down. And the older I get, I gotta tell you, time is going by really fast. Right. So time has no nature of being time from its own side. Right? I think I mentioned last class that the consequence branch of the middle way school, when we talked about whether something is figurative or literal, that the consequence branch says that only teachings on emptiness on this absence of self-existent are literal. Everything else is deceptive. Now, to an enlightened being, I mean, it's very good to ask these questions because it does seem impossible, omniscience. So it's good to think about them, to work with these questions. If in each moment an enlightened being sees everything in all times, then does an enlightened mind see me, waving my hands? Me waving my hands, those are different moments of time, right? There's a moment when the hand is here, and a moment here, and a moment here, and a moment here. We string them together into movement. And we call that flapping hands. So does the Buddha see the flapping hands? What would an enlightened being see? If they're seeing every position of the hands in all times, does it look like one big blob of hand? Like if something happened to the movie film, I don't know. But yeah, time is a construct, and I would kind of think that an enlightened being would experience time in that if you think about giving advice about what to give up and what to take up, there must be they must have time, because that omniscient being is teaching about cause and effect. The effect doesn't happen at the same moment as the cause, right? Why would an enlightened being say, oh, you should start serving people and stop eating all the ice cream yourself? Why? Because you're creating causes for suffering if you do that. So there must be time for an enlightened being. But I understand your question. These are things to think about. Maybe take to the debate ground someone really smart, like Ben Kramer. He's really fun to debate with because he's very, very smart. Yeah. Time is just a concept. It brings past and future. Well, no, past and future don't cause karma. Well, anyway, we're getting off into a topic where we could have, it sounds like, very interesting conversations. But I have some more things I have to finish. And I think that I think I should continue. So please continue to work with these questions, though, as you think about, the readings, and you think about this material, and And hopefully we have the opportunity to talk more about it in the future while we still have time. Sorry, now I'm being silly. Okay, so what to take up and what to give up. We can relate these to that we're taking up the pure side of existence. We should take up the pure side of existence, and we should give up the afflicted side of existence. So let's talk about the afflicted side of existence. That which we should give up. We've talked about before nyomo, which is the Tibetan word for the Sanskrit klesha, which comes from klish. Klish means to disturb, to bother. Klesha is that which disturbs your peace of mind. And there are 6 main, in English we call them mental afflictions or negative emotions. And there are 6 main negative emotions. There's, 84,000 of them, but there's 6 main ones. Desire, anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, and wrong view. These emotions, these afflictions, they upset our mind. And when our mind is upset, we tend to do things that create future suffering. We do things that harm others or ourselves, and that creates future suffering. So, suffering creates suffering. So we're going to take the 4 Arya truths, and we're going to divide them into the pure side of existence and the afflicted side of existence. Okay? And the 4 Arya truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path to the end of suffering. So those are the 4 Arya truths, and they call them Arya truths because after we have our first direct perception of the absence of self-existence of me in a state of single-pointed deep meditation, we come out of that experience and we do what's called the individual analysis. These 4 things: the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path to the end of suffering. We will contemplate these things deeply. We will realize them. We will realize that They are true. We will have no doubt. Doubt is one of the negative emotions that we completely dispel when we see emptiness directly. We will have no doubt about the path to the end of suffering. So we can divide then the four Arya truths into the afflicted side of things and the pure side of things. And it's pretty straightforward, right? Dukun, this is a Tibetans like to make abbreviations a lot. They like long phrases, and then they also like to throw out most of the words and make a tiny little phrase. So Dukun is Tibetan to represent Dukngel Dempa and Kunjung Dempa. So Duk, that refers to the truth of suffering. Dukngel Dempa. Dempa's truth. Dukngel, suffering. Here's another abbreviation, just for you Tibetanologists who love the Tibetan language. Another abbreviation is Dukden, truth of suffering. Dukden. So that's the truth of suffering. The Shakyamuni Buddha described suffering, birth, aging, sickness, and death. And we can talk about suffering in many different ways. We can talk about the suffering of change, where every time we get something that we think is bringing us happiness, it ends. It doesn't make us happy forever after. Every time we meet someone that we have a deep connection with, we really enjoy being in their presence. They enjoy being in our presence. We help each other be higher, better beings. We help each other up. Those all that will come to an end. They will die, or I will die, or they will get sick, or they will move away, and of course, physical pain and mental pain, those are obvious. But the Shakyamuni Buddha described, and we will see ourselves directly when we first see emptiness directly. After, I should say, we first see emptiness directly, we will see the truth of suffering. And Kunjung Dempa, that suffering has a cause, that our actions that are under the influence of negative emotions cause suffering. And of course, he went into really great detail. And if I were to go into really great detail about how Shakyamuni Buddha described suffering, we would be here for probably a week. He went into great detail about suffering and the causes of suffering. Then the next two truths. The Gokden, the truth of the end of suffering, and Lamden, the truth to the path to be free from suffering. Those are the pure side of things. The pure side of things. And path, those of you who took ACI course 1 know that path can sometimes mean, and here's what it does mean, is realization. In Tibetan folk, realization. Not just, like a path through the woods, although it can be seen that as well. But they're the realizations that we have. Like we begin with, like when we talk about the three principal paths, there's renunciation is the beginning. We have the realization that nothing outside of us there has any sort of nature of its own. That my actions create my experience of the world. My actions create my experience of this thing as bringing me happiness or bringing me suffering. Right? I can use this thing for a while and I can be very, very happy. I'm writing my ideas, I'm thinking, I'm having fun. But if I'm doing this for many, many hours, it becomes painful. And where does that pain come from? I don't know. Maybe I was a mean teacher that made a kid write on the blackboard over and over again. I will not chew bubble gum in class. Or something. And we renounce the idea that things come at us. It doesn't mean we don't enjoy things, but we understand where they come from. Renunciation is like we're on the beginning of the realizations that we need in order to reach freedom from suffering. Now, why do we consider, remember we said that an accurate perception, I didn't copy the Tibetan, but it's Sardu Milua Rikpa, that an accurate perception is fresh, unerring state of mind. Fresh, unerring state of mind. So why do we say the Buddha is accurate? Every perception is accurate. She only has accurate perceptions. So why do we say an enlightened being is unerring? Perfectly correct. How can we know that? We can hear, we can understand what Shakyamuni Buddha taught, what our teachers teach us. And remember our tests, and you can go back to last class because I'm running out of time to finish speaking about this, but there are the tests that we can perform on whether or not someone is accurate and whether or not someone is speaking figuratively or literally. But we can't yet say for certain, or I should say, I haven't yet proved why you should accept the Buddha as unerring. And what you can do is take the first part, the first Arya truth, the truth of suffering. And you can look at how Shakyamuni Buddha described suffering, how the Buddha described our experience as a human being perfectly, perfectly. And no one else, at least in my experience, no one else has talked about this to any extent. Shakyamuni Buddha describes our condition of suffering perfectly for me. So you look at your own experience. Where can you find teachings on suffering? In Pabonka Rinpoche has a book, Liberation Thrust into Our Hands. I have it over here. It's 3 volumes. And in this book, you'll find many different descriptions of suffering. Also in the Lamrim Chenmo, that's more Jason Kappa's Lamrim Chenmo. That's also very well described. And there is publication there. I don't have time to go walk over there and get that because we're coming up at the end of class. So, and Geshe Michael taught this book. So you can find on the knowledge base you can find recordings and reading materials of Geshe Michael's teachings. You just have to search for it. They've also got translations into many languages. So please check that out. Jamie Plant. He's I went to Diamond Mountain with him. He's a really great guy. Really great guy. Okay, so that's all for this class. And I don't think we have time to actually recite the prayer. So I won't recite the prayer, but I ask you to just take a moment and think about all the seeds that we've planted over the past time together in contemplating these ideas, and then take all those seeds, those potentials for being perfectly enlightened ourselves, to be perfectly accurate ourselves, and give them away. Give them away to everyone. May we all become totally enlightened. Thank you for your interest in these topics. Thank you for your attention. It really makes me so happy. Thank you, live translators. You are extraordinary. And thank you, ACI. Thank you, Geshe Michael. I'm over time. Sorry. See you on Friday. Bye.